What's up out there, patrons across the Skew universe? Welcome to another bonus edition of Weekly Skews. Just so you know, whenever you end up watching this, as we've started the recording, it is Friday, October 14th, 1:52 p.m. on the left coast. So that's the timeline context that you're working with there. I'm Trey, and that's Mark. And I was telling them beforehand, I'm going to tell y'all right now, I don't really know what we're talking about on this episode. I kind of do, but I kind of don't, because I've spent my last 2 hours, instead of prepping for this bonus show, I spent it making a video where I shit on Alabama for college football purposes. So I apologize for that. But it'll be fun because we're going to learn. We're going to learn together as we go. Anyway, Mark, how are you doing on this lovely Friday?
Pretty good, man. You know, I don't really give a shit about college football, but go Vols, I guess, because you know, Nick Saban doesn't hit for anybody except the devil.
Right.
Yeah.
The devil in
I think we
Alabama.
got a fun show. We're going to be talking about a little bit the January 6th committee wrapping stuff up. No big bombshells, but a few interesting threads to talk about from that. And because somebody asked about it Tuesday, we're going to talk about the LA City Council racism scandal. I guess I didn't realize how big of a national story that was. You know, it's been a big story locally. And I thought it'd be fun to talk about how LA is just as fucked up as a lot of Florida towns.
Right.
Before we get to the show, our big hobby horse about this litter box moral panic. NBC News got to the bottom of it. They basically called a shit ton of school districts, and they did find kitty litter in classrooms. Because it's America, it's not going to be anything fun.
It's puke. Is it puke?
No, it's for kids in. They're basically disaster packages kept in classrooms in case they have to go on lockdowns because of a school shooting. They'll be able to pee in a bucket with kitty litter in it.
Jesus fucking Christ, that's way darker than I just. You made me remember. I remember when I was a kid in elementary school, if a kid got sick and puked in the hall or something, I remember they would bring this shit that kind of looked like kitty litter in my memory, and they'd dump it out, and that's how they, got it all together and cleaned it up, which is gross, but like gross in a nostalgic way. I thought people would be like, oh, I remember that stuff, because that's how I felt, and then you had to come with the abject sadness of the reality we live in this country. That's horrible.
The lady we talked about on Tuesday, who's running for governor of Colorado, so Colorado's becoming sort of the epicenter of this, and the school district they found kitty litter in is the same district that has Columbine High School in it. So the classrooms have had kitty litter since 2017 as part of what they call go buckets, sort of like a go bag. Yeah. And the buckets also contain candy for diabetic students, a map of the school, flashlights, wet wipes, and first aid items. So yeah, turns out there is kitty litter in schools, and just for a different kind of moral panic we should be having about gun violence, but we're never going to.
Right.
And one other thing, I think we made fun of this when it happened because it was so obviously fake. This guy in Minnesota during the George Floyd uprising said that Antifa burned down his trailer and spray painted graffiti on his wall, and turned out that was all fake. He was doing insurance fraud for arson, and he set up a GoFundMe. So between the insurance settlement was like $300,000, and the GoFundMe raised $17,000. So he got a big bucket of money out of this, and now he's getting some jail time out of it. But I want to show you.
It's funny. It's funny to think that like these people, like that, some of them would believe that like Antifa gets together in their big like top secret, committee meetings in Portland headquarters, or whatever, and they're like, we got to get Randy. Or whatever this guy's name is, that dude in the trailer out there. We got to prioritize that guy and fucking his shit.
Yeah, and they said he burned his house down just for flying a Trump flag. And look what they spray painted on his. Well, I had air quote they spray painted on his garage. Biden BLM 2020 with an anarchy symbol. Now, it's so funny to me how little they understand about left wing politics.
Right.
Left wingers, as a rule, we can't get our shit in orders. We don't agree on anything, and there's not any person in the world who would like all three of Joe Biden, Black Lives Matter, and anarchy.
Anarchy, right?
It doesn't. It just isn't. The Venn diagrams don't overlap very much. So yeah, I wish we'd stop being. Remember the guy that spray painted Black's Rule in his own driveway? It's like at least talk to a black person to figure out how black people talk. Before you try to. try to do this. But yeah, I mean, that's.
I thought his
that's
biggest
off the
mistake
deal.
was leaving off White's drool. You know, like that.
Yeah.
That would have really tied the effort together in a believable way. You know, for me.
Yeah, black's rule, white's drool. I'm gonna get it on a T-shirt.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
So what do we got here?
Got a couple dumbasses for you, Trey. If you want to do those.
Yeah. Yeah. What's up? Where are we?
Graphic, please. Do we do the graphic on the? If we use it for the listeners, we use a different text setup for the bonus Skews because it's pre-recorded. I'm not sure if we have the logo. If Matt has the logo, but let's just the rhythm of it. I'm just gonna say it so everyone knows we're doing. Matt, graphic, please.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. First dumbass, I'll go ahead and do this one, is gas prices for being so high you can't even run for the border anymore.
And admittedly, you want to know how bad inflation is? Yesterday, yes, I had a nice lunch at Taco Bell. Cost me about $28 at Taco Bell for lunch. People need to pay for those things, and we do that by getting jobs and getting in the economy and getting active and getting involved.
Wait a minute. You spent $28 at Taco Bell for just yourself?
For lunch, yeah.
Yeah,
That's true.
Okay. That's a lot of chalupas.
That's an inflation story.
Oh, that's so great that even those
If
guys
you eat
were like, hold on a
$28
second.
at Taco Bell,
Dude, funny personal story. Now, of course, this was before Joe Biden, before inflation got so out of control. But early on in my comedy career, it wasn't even a career yet. Me and Drew and some other guys in Knoxville had an idea for a video series that we made 2 of and then quit because it was stupid. But it was based around it was based around eating. Like we were trying to make like funny eating challenge videos. And we did the only one we ever like did and put out was a Taco Bell challenge where the whole challenge was each person had to be able to eat $20 worth of Taco Bell by themselves. And it was insanely difficult, you know, like, and of course, again, that was a few years ago, but like you add another $8 on top of that, we would have to go to the emergency room, bro. But even today, if you're spending $28 on just yourself at Taco Bell, that's some fucking sumo wrestler diet shit.
This blogger over at Defector, which is like a left-wing sports blog, tried this. He went through the drive-thru, and to get to $28, he had to avoid all combo meals and order an ungodly amount of food, and basically it ruined his week.
Yeah, right. I totally believe that.
It's like you cannot eat $28 in Taco Bell and feel okay.
No.
So this is like absolutely fucking insane. Our next dumbass candidate is Dennis Prager, returning champion. His sister for letting him read the Bible and missing out on some sweet Dennis Prager dick. You can watch this, Matt.
Let's see here. The public nudity calls are interesting. Anyway, none of you have a secular argument against it, and I don't blame you for that because there isn't any. There's no secular argument against adult incest. Well,
What?
I have an argument, Dennis. You can get that.
Oh, he
My
said
argument is I don't want a post breakup run in with my sister to be awkward at Christmas.
at
That
the
is a
family
good reason
reunion,
not to have it.
Christmas time.
Yes.
What did he say right after this? He
I
said,
don't
I think I'm quoting him here. Did he just say something about retarded offspring? We started laughing, but is that what he said?
Oh, I might have been blackout. Blacked
Matt,
out
run it
where
back
he
just
was.
a little bit. Just the tiny
what's
bit.
your argument? That they're going to produce
Yeah, there you go.
mentally retarded offspring?
I think he said other than that. Other than that, what's your argument? Which is like, there's a bunch of arguments, you know, but like that's a funny other than that one. That's a funny argument to throw other than that after. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
other than that, you might have severely mentally handicapped, you know, children, which who cares really? Other than that, what kind of argument can you even make? You know, it's just other than the Habsburg jaw and the anemia and all that shit. What's the big deal with sister fucking?
You got you got to go through like 10 generations before you get Habsburg stuff, though, right? So he's not even right about the first thing. But like these guys always love to think that without the Bible, there's no rules.
I know.
And like,
I hate that shit.
It's like
I've had real Christians, genuinely say to me, in complete sincerity, they're like, but without the word, how would we know not to, to kill and lie? How would we know to love thy neighbor and all this stuff? And I'm just always like, I guess the way that I already know all that shit by not being a huge bag of shit, because it ain't got nothing to do with the Bible for me, and I'm not out raping and killing. I don't even hardly covet, I covet a little bit. But like...
I covet a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I will do some coveting. Not of wives, though, at the very least. I take the Lord's name in vain. Some of that stuff hits, but like murder and rape and shit, I don't need the Bible to know not to do that.
No, me neither. These guys always confess themselves. Well, without the Bible, I'd be out there raping and killing all over the place.
Right.
It's like, okay. It's like, also, there's plenty of non-Christian societies and countries on Earth where rape and murder are illegal or at least frowned upon. You don't murder is like, there are uncontacted tribes in the Amazon who murder doesn't hit.
Right. Right.
Like, what are we talking about here? These guys are such
I think
lunatics.
Just the general idea that you would prefer to not be murdered. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're a human being, you're like, being murdered wouldn't hit. So that leads people to conclude we probably shouldn't just let people wantonly murder each other because then they might murder me. I think just self-preservation goes a long way with or without Jesus in terms of not allowing murder to just run unfettered through society. But what do I know?
Yeah, and also there's plenty of secular moral codes. You got the 10 crack commandments. You got all the advice that Jason Isbell's imaginary father gives him an outfit. Those are all great words to live by that don't have anything to do with the Bible. Yeah, there we go with that. And in case you... One more dumbass candidate is John Fetterman for not using his talents to be a RoboCop. Check this out.
In this case, what we see is they're pulling the sympathy card. So, yeah, Tucker Carlson is absolutely right. John Fetterman is, in fact, our first real official cyborg candidate.
Yeah, no, it's a merger of a man and a machine. He can't function otherwise.
So, a big story in Pennsylvania the last few days.
Right. The thing with he needs captioning technology to do live interviews or whatever because of his stroke. Which basically makes him a robot.
He has auditory processing issues since his stroke, so they put a closed caption thing in front of him to translate the person's words into print because he got apparently process that easier. And the media treated that as a mental incapacity issue. People calling it ableist and shit. It's like, just because do they think all deaf people are stupid?
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Probably.
If you think that, just yeah. It's been terrifically frustrating, and a bunch of media got roasted for it by disability advocates, and deservedly so, because it's not all right, Mitch McConnell wears glasses.
Right. Also, he's got dead hands.
Yeah.
Or he did at one point. I don't know what's up with his hands now. Greg puts Greg Abbott up there, whose
the thing,
legs do not work.
Yeah, he that's how he made his money, was suing people who paralyzed him, and then he turned around and advocated for tort reform laws and foreclosed that option to anyone else. So another reason Greg Abbott sucks. While we're talking about the Senate, a couple of Senate-related news stories. Ron Johnson debated Mandela Barnes last night, and I don't know how much of debates actually impact American politics anymore, but check this hilarity out. There's a bunch of it, but here we go.
Response to the wild charge of Lieutenant Governor Barnes, the FBI set me up with a corrupt briefing and then leaked that to smear me.
I'm sorry.
That's the audience laughing.
Corruption with the FBI, which I'm trying to uncover and expose.
All right. He's fucking stupid.
So, do we have time for
here's a montage we're going to get to next, just the context for what he's talking about there. He's talking about accidentally being a Russian asset, which is a fucking wild thing to be defending yourself about in a debate. But listen to Mandela dunk on him over and over again, because it's fun. He's probably the worst person in the Senate since Ted Cruz.
I worked all shifts starting my business.
Look, the biggest achievement in business was Ron Johnson saying, "I do." He married into his business.
Yeah.
He didn't start that from the ground up.
All right. He's never signed the front of a paycheck. He doesn't have a clue how to create jobs. He certainly doesn't have a clue how the economy works and how you run a business. He doesn't.
Senator Johnson is taking a whole lot of credit for his business-in-law.
Roast battle.
There was also an instance where Senator Johnson had to be sat down by the FBI and warned that he may be a Russian asset. We cannot trust Senator Johnson to protect democracy abroad because we can't even trust Senator Johnson to protect democracy here at home.
Mr. Johnson, you do have a chance on a rebuttal for that.
Yeah, you can cut it, Matt, because that's the same clip we saw before. So, yeah, Ron Johnson, probably the most telling character-wise moment of this debate was the moderator did this thing at the end of the debate that they often do, where it's like, say something nice about your opponent. And Mandela Barnes is like, well, he's a good family man. He's dedicated to his wife and kids, that type of thing. And Ron Johnson's response was, Mandela also had a great upbringing, which makes it crazy that he became so anti-American that he got booed for that. Just can't even say one fucking nice thing about the lieutenant governor of the state you live in. Mandela Barnes, to my knowledge, doesn't have any huge character flaws. I haven't done any deep research on him, but he seems like a good candidate. I know Matt's a big fan. And speaking of Matt, Matt's organization made their first attack ad, and he chose our favorite target, J.D. Vance. Let's get a taste of this to see what Matt's been up to. Because it's also funny that Matt made an attack ad. Because if you guys obviously don't know him or never see him, but he's the most Midwest nice guy.
That's true. That's true. But listen, Mark, I think you need to keep in mind the mystery and the allure of Shadow Matt, okay, for our audience, all right? Don't be pulling back the fucking curtain and telling them about how sweet he is and all this shit. He lives in the shadows, in the places between. That's where producer Matt is. But I definitely want to see this, I want to see.
Yeah.
There are two types of people in the world, those who weather the storm and those who run when times get tough.
I can't stomach Trump. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
JD is kissing my ass. He wants my support.
Okay, now tell me though, you got to Yale. Did you ever play the hillbilly card?
When the opioid epidemic devastated countless Ohio families, did J.D. Vance help? No, he left, moved to Washington, D.C., and took a job with a lobbying firm that represented Purdue Pharma, manufacturer of OxyContin and the campaign of lies that left 500,000 dead. They admitted as much in court.
We requested to speak with a representative of Purdue Pharma and instead offered the name of a guest that we contacted, and we agreed to invite her on our program. Dr. Sally Sattel is a psychiatrist here in the Washington area. How dangerous of a drug is this OxyContin?
OxyContin is a very effective and actually safe drug if taken as prescribed.
And it gets worse.
I'm going to start a small nonprofit that's really focused on this opioid crisis that's hit Ohio.
It was all a sham. JD used it as a political slush fund to hire a DC strategist. And here's the kicker, Purdue Pharma's spin doctor Sally Sattel. 4 years later, JD closed up shop on his charity without spending a single dime on fighting the opioid crisis, announcing his run for Senate with a market-tested beard and a culture war platform of bitterness and resentment. Supposedly anti-big tech, but single-handedly bankrolled by one of Silicon Valley's most ruthless investors. Now, we're supposed to believe this Silicon Valley puppet is going to represent us? Come on, really?
JD is fake as hell is the tagline on that ad.
Matt,
that's Ether, man.
Ether, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, going hard on him. I like the because it's Ohio. I'm gonna let this slide. But I've done some voiceover stuff for some of these propaganda campaigns, man. I'm just saying, I don't know where you got that dude, and he's fine, but just in the future, if you ever want to take down somebody from the South, I'm just you can call your boy. That's all I'm saying. I'm out there. Anyway,
if y'all don't know any comics, Who Books That is a famous running joke about a hell gig. So it's funny you see a propaganda video and Who Books That?
Who Books That? Yeah. I literally just filmed a propaganda video yesterday. So I'm down for it. Anyway, all right. Where were we? That was great, Matt. Good job.
Yeah, good job, Matt. So let's get into the first topic, which is City of Los Angeles politics, a segment I've titled City of Horrifically Racist Angels. Now, the stereotype in like red states is California some like communist hellhole / utopia, but it's still America, man. It's still run by money. It's still run by a bunch of racists. So if you want to know what LA City politics is like, let's start with this fun little video that I truly enjoyed. It's only like 7 seconds long, but it's perfect.
I do not condone the use of racially offensive slurs or language. However,
sometimes they're funny. However, sometimes a person cuts you off in traffic and you can tell what type of person they are. So, sometimes you run into some Jews, or like, I don't know what came after that, but whatever it was, it couldn't have been great. That's hilarious.
Yeah, so this lady's name is Tracy Parks. She's running for city council on the west side, and which is far away from where me and Trey live.
Yeah.
The context for that is she's a lawyer by day, and one of the recent lawsuits she worked in, she defended the city of Anaheim from a lawsuit where a black dude alleged discrimination, saying a supervisor used the N-word numerous times in front of him. And the defense is, well, he didn't mean it at him. He was just saying it in general. And that's what Tracy Parks' defense was. And the wild thing is, this fucking lunatic isn't even involved in the main scandal we're going to be talking about.
Right.
Probably because she hasn't been elected yet. This is a long, complicated story. But it starts a leaked conference call that involved 3 city council members from last fall. It was last October. These 3 city council people were Nuri Martinez, Gil Cedillo, and Kevin De Leon. And the guy they were talking to is a labor organizer named Ron Herrera. She compared the adopted black toddler of a fellow city council member to, she used the Spanish term for little monkey. She said that LA's DA, George Gascon, did not deserve Latino support because, quote, he's with the blacks. The kid they were talking about was a 2-year-old adopted black son of a councilman named Mike Bonin, who's happens to be gay, married to another man. So they have a 2-year-old black kid, and she was going on and on about how the kid behaved at a Martin Luther King Day parade, saying the son was misbehaving and this little kid could have tipped over the float, which is insane. Her quote was, "They're raising him like a little white kid." Now, there was a funny debate happening among academics, like Matt Iglesias, who's like a liberal pundit, was like, I think this is about like the cultural disparity among different segments of the liberal coalition about approval of spanking, which is like he was putting on this polling data about which segments of the population approve of spanking, and being like the implication being like black and brown people are more in favor of spanking than white parents. And it's like, as a comedian, Trey, you and I have heard 1,000 different versions of the white people need to beat their kids bit, right?
Yeah, right. Although I'll say that like in my experience, white trash people beat the hell out of their kids, or at least used to. I think it's more of an economic. I mean, I remember before I actually had kids and was faced with the prospect of beating them. I used to before I had kids. I'd say all the time. I was like, there ain't nothing wrong with it. Hell, everybody I know got their ass whooped. They're fine. I do not hit my kids because again, once they were reeling in front of me, I was like, yeah, it feels odd and not exactly right to just beat a child. But before I had them, I was fully in favor of it because fucking Clay County, Tennessee, we got strapped, buddy. We had to pick our own switch, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So my dad got hit a lot as a kid, and his line was always that he would spank us more, but my mom wouldn't let him. My mom's like a teacher, has her master's in child development, so she knows all the studies about what violence actually does to kids. But so that was always what he said. But one time he did get furious at me, and I had fucked up, and he did take a belt to me. Then he cried afterwards. So I don't think it was all my mom.
Yeah, my dad never whipped us, but like my grandparents and stuff would. And I had a babysitter. She was the one who made her pick it. But my babysitter was like a 350-pound redneck gypsy woman named Minnie Eva. So like, don't picture some babysitter's club bullshit. She did not fuck around. and people like I remember teachers was whipping kids when I was in school in Clayton. They all had like a paddle above their desk and stuff. So I mean, I don't know how exactly we got on. I mean, I do know how, but anyway, yeah. But like white people, I'm doing a whole bit right now about the difference between white people and white trash. But like white people, like Connecticut fucking white people, like I think they discipline them a little
Yeah,
less classically.
It was just funny to me that Iglesias thought he discovered something through polling data when all you had to do was be aware of other people. But
I believe the Latino parents, the Latina mothers are famous for the flip flop. There's a word for it, chancla or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's the flip flop. They that's their weapon of choice. Is the flip flop. Anyway. Go ahead.
What you're learning is Triana's understanding of other cultures is shaped entirely through watching other stand-up comedians perform.
Right.
So, what they were like. So people are focusing on the words of what she said, and they are bad. Like for example, they were talking about Koreatown. Quote: I see a lot of little short, dark people there. Quote, Oaxacan Koreans, not even like Kevin, little ones. I don't know what Oaxacan Koreans means. And this gets into this, we talked about Tuesday, the intra-Latino racism that I don't really understand. I think Oaxacan means brown and poor, but in this context, but I don't really understand what she's getting at. She talked about people with dark skin they're so ugly in Spanish. She also, this came out later. The tape was like 2 hours long, so it's like 20 different scandals in there. So there's like a third day story when people finally got to the end of the tape was Nuri Martinez also makes crude comments about Jews and Armenians, which she pretty much listed everybody who lives in her district who isn't a white landlord.
Right. Yeah.
So her political career is over. But let's talk about what they were talking about. People are going to focus on the words because liberals like to focus on overt acts of racism instead of the structural stuff that would actually change stuff. What they were talking about was redistricting, and redistricting in order to gerrymander out an actual left-wing city council person named Nithya Raman, who we're going to talk about in a minute. The offensive thing she said about Jewish people was she talked about a councilman who happens to be Jewish, and she talks about him cutting their deal with South LA, meaning giving black people a district. So. But also, just for one last thing, the thing she said about Armenians was she was talking about an Armenian politician and said, "What's his name? What's he look like? He's the guy with the one eyebrow." Which, I mean, look, Armenians are a hirsute people. I don't think this would be construed as racist if you said it in a stand-up comedy act. But when you're a politician, the line should be higher, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, what they were talking about redistricting. They're trying to divide Nithya Raman's district in Koreatown in order to suppress the people it voted for, who are largely renters. Now, the big material issue in LA politics is landlords versus everyone else, and the city council is largely controlled by city council people and landlords. So this is about more than racial slurs. It's about actual political power and who gets to wield it. And one thing she was complaining about in the call is that black people make up 10% of the population in Los Angeles, but according to her, 20% of the city council. Now, there are 15 people in the city council. Now, I don't know how you arrive at 20%, which would be 1.5 to 3 people, I guess. So she compared it to the Wizard of Oz effect, saying black people like the Wizard of Oz, they seem very powerful, but when you pull back the curtain, there's only 10% of people. So she's just objecting to, I guess it doesn't occur to her that white people could vote for a black candidate. I wonder how she thinks Obama got elected. But... the fact they're talking about gerrymandering openly because of racism will trigger maybe some impacts from the Voting Rights Act, which is going to be hilarious when Los Angeles gets dinged for violating the Voting Rights Act, when it's basically been eliminated for all the places it was intended to regulate gerrymandering in the South. But the Supreme Court will love to dunk on Los Angeles for this. By the way, Nuri Martinez's husband works for Sheriff Villanueva's campaign manager. So LA politics is already fucked up and connected. So the racist former city council president's husband works for the top gang banging cop in the state. Villanueva is literally in a gang. It's not even he's in I forget where it's the Grim Reapers or the Executioners, but we talked about before. LA Sheriff's Department has gangs in it and they murder people.
Couple of relevant stories to that, but the idea that, like you said, people think of LA and everything has been this liberal or socialist utopia or whatever. And I remember I used to briefly make fun of that in my stand-up act after I first moved here. I was talking about people, the way people would talk to me about the South, be like, it's just so incredibly what's it like to live in a place that's with that kind of systemic racism? And I was like, why are you asking me when the LAPD is right there You know, like, fuck, why don't you start with the, like, they're famous, you know, ask Rodney King what he thinks about that shit. Their NWA wasn't rapping about how appreciated they were, or, you know, and pointing that out. But the personal anecdote, and I've told this on the Well Read podcast a long time ago when it happened, and I suppose I will censor the guy because there's no point in not, but pretty rough but true story. I was in I hadn't been out here long, and I didn't know much about it. I grew up in a place where pretty much there was white people and black people, and, you know, there was racist rednecks or people who weren't racist, and that was about it. I didn't have a lot of exposure to other cultures. Moved to L.A., and one day I got picked up to go shoot this thing. They sent a driver for me, and it was like a driver in like a suit and a Tahoe, that type of deal, and he was a Hispanic guy a Latino guy from L.A., who started asking me questions about what I did. I said, and he wouldn't stop, which is fine. And so it got to a certain point where it was like, yeah, well, I kind of do some political stuff. And as soon as that came up, I told him I was a committee. As soon as that came up, immediately I was like, listen, I'm a liberal. We ain't got to keep talking about it. If that's a problem, it's fine, whatever. Like, I was just trying to get out in front of it. And as soon as he found that out, the guy immediately starts going on a tirade about, like, he's like, oh, fuck Donald Trump. Trump was the president at this time. He's like, that motherfucker's the worst thing ever happened in this country. I can't stand that piece of shit, you know, like, just going off. And so this is like a self-professed, you know, at least identifies as being on the left, Latino dude, native Angelino, right? I know all those things at this point. And right as he's dropping me off, he's like, that fucking, like, the people around that guy, like, who's that? What's that that rapper that's been messing with Donald Trump? And I was like, you mean Kanye? And he was like, yeah, dude, Kanye. He's like, listen, I'm not racist, but every time I see Kanye West, I think to myself, what a fucking N-word. Except he ain't saying N-word. He said it hard R with vitriol about Kanye West. But again, and he had just pulled up, and I was like, all right, well, thanks for the ride, man. And I just got out. Thank God that was the timing of it. But, like, I did not see that coming. I never would have seen that coming. That shit shocked me. I told the story on the Well Read podcast, and we got a bunch of emails and messages from other Latinos or people from out here and things like that who were saying, like, yeah, that don't surprise me at all. You know, it's like there's plenty of racism, you know, especially towards black people within our community and vice versa. And it's just like, racism is extremely complicated and extremely far-flung and pervasive throughout any kind of communities, regardless of their skin color, ethnicity, or political ideology or any of that shit. You can't, you know, racism's going to rear its ugly head pretty much anywhere and always in this country. And wildly, this is one of the we're one of the least racist, you know, Western countries, and all that is still true. So,
we're the closest thing the world has to an actual long surviving multiracial democracy, and in the process of, like, maybe quitting all that. So what they're actually doing that phone call, they were talking to Ron Herrera, who's the labor guy. They were talking about delivering Mitch O'Farrell's support to redistrict Nithya Raman out of the city council, and they said, Mitch is my boy. So Martinez resigned in 3 stages. First, she resigned as president of the city council. Then she took a leave of absence from the council. And then she finally resigned her job entirely when she realized she had no support left. And who is the new acting president of the LA City Council? Mitch O'Farrell. So the guy they were planning to work with to fuck Nithya is now the new guy who took over for her. So the fucking's still happening is my point. It's going to be done with clean language. And because it's LA, yes, there is a Scientology angle. When all this was going on, none other than Leah Remini from King of Queens, who famous as a former Scientologist, who made a docu-series about the evils of Scientology, pounced on O'Farrell and talked about how he's been a loyal ally of the Church of Scientology because the celebrity center's in his district, and that he's horrifically corrupt. And the weird thing is, one of the things she revealed about Scientology is it's virulently anti-gay. The Church of Scientology literally secretly believes that gay people are better off dead. And Mitch O'Farrell happens to be gay, so there's just no bottom to the corruption in this shit or the cynicism. And I want to show you this quick. The Trump guy who's running for mayor of Los Angeles as a Democrat, Rick Caruso, had a debate the other night with Karen Bass, who has her own problems with Scientology in her past. And this happened after all this scandal, and he made this dumb joke, if you're wondering if any of them are learning about how to talk.
And this question goes for the both of you. The next mayor of Los Angeles will be either an African-American woman or a white man.
I'm Italian.
Italian-American.
Thank you. That's Latin. Thank you.
Latin.
The joke there is that Italians are like the Schrodinger's race. They can be both white and not white at the same time. Depending on
I love it and think it's hilarious, the whole thing. Like, because Italians will go on whole things online about, people being prejudiced towards Italians and all this shit, and acting like they're not white. They're a minority and all this shit. And I know for a while they were persecuted against, just like the Irish were, whatever. I don't give a fuck. You're white. Yeah. Y'all are white. All right. I don't want to hear it. And my main thing with it is, like, I reserve the right to talk shit about and make fun of Italians just for being Italian, like, in a way that essentially would be racist, but I'm sorry, it don't count because we're all white. Like, they can make fucking redneck jokes, white trash jokes, that's fine, but if you Italian, Irish, French, any of that shit, I'm going to be sort of racist towards you in a comical way. And it don't count. Because we're all white, so you kiss my ass. I don't care. Spaghetti people, I don't give a shit.
People got so mad when that Super Mario trailer came out because people were mad because Chris Pratt's Mario voice wasn't racist enough.
Yeah, right.
If he had done the "It's a Me Mario," like all those mob front organizations that are anti-Italian defamation league would have come after it. But like, what do you like? I don't know. I don't really have a hot take on the Mario voice, except I would have done it. I would have went full. It's a me, a Mario. I would have done it.
Yeah, well, I just think it's funny that apparently some Italians have like a cultural pride and connection towards Mario, which is just like clearly created by the Japanese, like fucking around and taking. Like the Japanese have to think that's hilarious. They're like, the Italians are actually into this, like, oh, that's crazy because we were on fucking acid when we came up with that shit.
It's like my wife is like, why don't they make it sound like an actual but the character has history, like has an Italian voice, like it was invented by coked up Japanese people in 1982. Like there's no like it wasn't made by Italians.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like Japanese people that also is fucking takes mushrooms and stomps turtles and shit. His old lady's like always getting captured by a fucking lizard king or a monkey king or a combination. The shit is insane. It's all insane. And the protagonist of it is a fucking, like, Italian plumber with a ridiculous voice. It's a silly thing for anyone to attach any shred of, like, cultural relevance to or whatever. I don't care what what nationality Mario is. It's he's a Mario.
I think, like, white Americans in general don't have, like, a culture, so we just attach to, like, nostalgia stuff from our childhood. So we think stuff like whether or not Velma is gay is a part of our fabric or part of our national fabric.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it's like, why do you care so much, man? Go out, like, what's the internet expression? Go touch grass. Yeah. If you're mad, if you have any feelings at all about the Mario voice, my recommendation would be to go touch grass. All right, you want to talk about the January 6th committee?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw the Pelosi montage, and they put together. It's like a fucking Marvel Pelosi trailer or whatever. That was cool.
One of the things that actually came out today, I guess the committee's done having hearings, so just leaking footage, or it might have come from Pelosi herself, because a lot of the Pelosi footage was filmed by her daughter, who is a documentary filmmaker. And one of the things that came out today was it was footage of Pelosi calling Mike Pence to make sure he's okay. And it was like, that's something Trump never did, which is just fucking funny to me.
Of course.
Yesterday was, in theory, the last hearing. Not a shit ton happened that was new. They sort of just put a bow on a lot of stuff. There was some new stuff that we'll get into. But like we talked about in our Vance episode before they moved the hearing because of the hurricane, the focus was indeed on President Trump's state of mind, his intent, his motivations, and how he spurred others to do his bidding. And the big headline was this: January 6th panel votes to subpoena Trump as it wraps up its case. They voted 9-0 to subpoena Trump for testimony, which I don't imagine will do much, because what he'll do is just file an appeal and run out the clock, and then the committee loses its authority at the end of the year, and there'll be a new Congress next year, which will have to reauthorize it, and will probably be Republican, so will not do that.
Right.
So let me read this right here. The committee laid out in vivid detail how Mr. Trump, enraged and embarrassed he had lost the election and unwilling to accept that fact, sought to join the crowd he had summoned to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. Knowing that some of his reporters were armed and threatening violence as the Capitol met to certify his defeat. Now, Trump live tweeted Live Truth, sorry, it was on Truth Social, posting all about the hearing as it was going on, so he was watching it and nobody else was. He's been telling aides privately that he favors testifying before the panel as long as he gets to do so live. I would watch that, Trey.
Yeah. Dude, that could be some moon landing shit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd like to think so. I'm always surprised by the amount of people who still continue to not give a shit about any of it. But that'd be some high profile stuff for sure.
Yeah. I watched a documentary recently. I might have talked about it, about the Iran-Contra thing, and it was weird because one of the things that made it not go anywhere is Oliver North
Stone?
was very compelling. No, Oliver North. Yeah, Oliver North was very compelling in his testimony and basically turned Americans around to approve of Iran-Contra by yelling at Congress as a bunch of lib pussies.
Right.
So
Right.
Trump might be able to do that, but I think the majority of Americans find him so off-putting, and plus if he doesn't take the fifth, he's a fucking lunatic. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely
we just suffered
a
through
lunatic.
2 years.
So.
Yeah.
That would be completely unpredictable how that would go down with him. Other than it'll be wild. That's the prediction I think you can make accurately. It's going to be some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be wild is what Trump famously tweeted before January 6th about January 6th.
Oh, that's right.
This would probably be wild too. So we went through almost 2 years of Republicans saying that no one even ever asked for help, or maybe Nancy Pelosi refused help when the Capitol was being invaded. Anyway, so thanks to Pelosi's daughter, we have a bunch of footage of her calling the DOD, then this governor of Virginia, the governor of Maryland, trying to get the National Guard. The DOD told her to fuck off and pretended they didn't have anybody to send, and then the mayor of DC as well. So if we get this video, man.
We just were waiting for so-and-so. We need them there now, whoever you got.
You also have troops. This is Steny Hoyer. Troops.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time to make that decision.
Andrews Air Force Base.
All right.
Other military bases.
Thank you.
We need active duty National Guard.
How soon in the future can you have the place evacuated and cleaned out?
I don't want to speak for the leadership that's responsible for executing the operation, so I'm not going to say that because they're on the ground and they're the
Well, just pretend for a moment it was the Pentagon or the White House or some other entity that was under siege. And let me say, you can logistically get people there as you make the plan.
You can cut it, Matt. So she's talking to the acting Secretary of Defense, who of course is a Trump stooge who's dragging his feet, and she says, basically says, pretend it's a place you give a shit about.
You care about, right, yeah.
Yes. And so he, of course, did nothing. And he says, I can't even give you an estimate when we could actually get the place cleared out, which remember, the whole point of this exercise was to delay the certification of the vote, so he's just doing that too. But I thought Slate had this piece that was a wrap-up of the thing, and it was like the choicest quotes from the final January 6th hearing. I thought that'd be a fun way to frame what we're going to talk about. These the best quotes. The first one I want to talk about was "clean up the poo-poo."
Yeah.
Because in our national capital, a bunch of people took shit everywhere, and here's Nancy Pelosi talking about it in in a manner that
A very bad report about the condition of the House floor with defecation and all that kind of thing as well. I don't think that that's hard to clean up, but I do think it is more from a security standpoint of making sure that everybody is out of the building and how long.
This is what the job is for a Speaker of the House during a Trump administration, is calling janitors to clean human shit off the floor. You can cut it, Matt. That's the only part I want to talk about. So, yeah.
Dude, it's wild. These people, it's wild to me that these people's heads, they genuinely thought they were heroes. You know what I mean? Like heroic patriots who were freeing their country or whatever, and it's just wild to have believed that, considering the scene around them at that time. Fucking mayonnaise people shitting in the floor, fucking flying snake flags and stuff, and they're like, "This is the movement." It's pretty wild.
It's not just taking a shit tray; it's taking a heroic shit. For your country.
Patriotic shit.
Some other choice quotes were from Trump. "I can't believe I lost to this effing guy." So again, this goes to his state of mind. If he knows he lost, then he's fucking dead. I hate that. Like, I've read a long explainer piece about the decline of white collar crime prosecutions and how rich people get away with so much. And basically, what they're saying is like white collar crimes have a level of intent to it that everyone else isn't subject to. Like, when you do tax fraud, you've got to prove to the person they knew the law and they intentionally broke it, and they knew they were, it's like, that doesn't, if you rob a liquor store and kill a guy, no one cares if you knew that it was illegal.
Right.
It's like, oh, I didn't know there was a law against that. I can't kill a guy and take his money? Oh, shit. Like, it doesn't fucking, but anyway, that's a giant hole in American law, and if you want to talk about how, like, anyway, this is a sideline, but white collar prosecutions are through the fucking floor. Basically, there's no. If you steal people's money with paperwork, you're free and clear.
Right.
So that goes to Trump's state of mind. Another one of his key quotes is, "It could get sporty after dark." And this is important because in one key moment of the hearing, we learned that despite testimony from other witnesses asserting the White House and Secret Service hadn't received intelligence warning them of violence ahead of time, the Secret Service knew well in advance that it was coming. According to Adam Schiff, the committee obtained emails and other communications from the Secret Service that showed they had known that the Proud Boys and other armed and organized Trump supporters would likely try to storm the Capitol. They brought back some old testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson, who worked in the White House we talked about before. She's the one who said that the Secret Service tried to grab the wheel and stuff. And they essentially were like, even though reporters after that happened said the Secret Service denied it, no one has come forward and been willing to testify under oath that what she said was untrue. They confirmed that Trump tried to force the Secret Service to drive him to the Capitol, and that he knew the mob he had directed to go there was armed. And that included Secret Service documents describing agents discussing the level of weaponry and violence they anticipated from the Capitol rioters. And here's some live text from Secret Service during January 6th. His first one is a message from one agent to another. It says, "POTUS said he lacked courage. Over 24,000 likes in under 2 minutes." He's talking about Mike Pence. And his second text, "POTUS just tweeted about Pence. Probably not going to be good for Pence." So, like, these are Secret Service agents following the president's tweets to see who they need to worry about getting killed is,
Did they? I never really thought about. I always pictured them as like, apolitical sentries or whatever. But like some of these Secret Service guys were like insanely loyal to him, right? And is that like they don't bring in they don't like source Secret Service guys? Do they? Like, I always just assumed it was like, like a grouping, an agency, and they cycled through all the presidents, and so they were probably relatively neutral. They just do the job. I was kind of surprised to hear that some of them were part of the cult, in that way. But
well, you don't like this next piece of information, then, because this didn't come out of the hearings. This is this reporting from Ryan J. Riley, who writes for NBC News, but they got a letter from an email written back and forth between FBI head honchos, and this highlighted portion says, "There is at best a sizable percentage of the employee population that felt sympathetic to the group that stormed the Capitol. Here's what's happening across multiple field offices." It talks about how a lot of black agents refused to train for SWAT because they didn't think other agents would actually defend them in a deadly situation. And they said that these Trump supporters who approved of January 6th are, quote, representative of a larger group within the organization. So that's the famously liberal FBI Trump thinks is framing him.
I guess they're all kind of like cop-ish at the very least. You know what I mean? They're like cop-adjacent. And I'm never surprised when a cop is a, arch conservative or whatever, because they're on the other side of the war. Like we're the enemy to them in the big culture war, and they're on the other side of it. So I guess it just makes sense that a lot of those guys would just be of that type of persuasion, to begin with. but that's alarming.
Yeah, we're not. There's a war on crime and a war on drugs, Trey. We're not citizens deserving of protection and policing and help whenever we need it. We're subjects to be occupied.
Right.
So this next quote from Trump, I don't want people to know we lost Mark. He's talking to Mark Meadows. This is embarrassing. Figure it out.
Imagine getting that text if you're Mark Meadows. Like, I don't want people to know that we lost the presidential election. You know what I mean? It's like how the fuck, like, what do you even, what do you say to that? Like, okay, I think I can keep that under wraps. The results of the results of the presidential election. But
yeah. It's like he's treating losing the presidential election as like having erectile dysfunction one time. Let's just keep it between us, and it covers everybody.
Right.
So this section included testimony from General Mark Milley, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under Trump, that Trump may have conceded defeat in the cabinet meeting, saying, "quote Where's the effect of we lost? We need to let that issue go to the next guy," meaning President Biden. So he's conceding defeat in the name of being laziness and fucking over the next president, including, when you fuck over the next president, you're fucking over the American people. I don't want to get lost in this. There's one other... We talked, in our advanced episode for this, we talked about the Roger Stone clip where they'd talk about fuck the voting, get right to the violence. That was one of the takeaway quotes here. But we don't have to watch that video again, but I do want to watch this case. So... Roger Stone, as we talked about, a lot of this video of Roger Stone comes from a documentary crew following him around, and they called this is the day that Biden was inaugurated, and at noon has passed, meaning Trump is no longer president, and he's figured out that he's not going to get a second pardon from Trump for January. Remember, he got pardoned for Russiagate stuff, and he wanted a Trump pardon for January 6th, and he didn't get one, and this is him reacting on the phone to that.
Jared Kushner has an IQ of 70. He's coming to Miami. We will eject him from Miami very quickly. He'll be leaving very quickly. He has 100 security guards. I'll have 5,000 security guards. You want to fight? Let's fight. Fuck you. Fuck you and your abortionist bitch daughter.
I think he means wife.
I know.
Unless he's talking about Trump. I mean, he's obviously talking about Ivanka. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but that's... Yeah. Either way, seeing a guy like that lose his shit is fun. In this context.
Yeah. So anyway, a lot of this has been talking about. Well, could the federal government have seen this coming? And the funny thing is, this documentary is called "A Storm Foretold" because the documentary guy clearly saw it coming. He's a Danish filmmaker named Christopher. This is gonna be fun to say. Gulbrandsen.
Yeah.
And Stone, after participating in this documentary, has realized that it makes him look bad, and he's threatened to file a $25 million lawsuit against Gulbrandsen, who basically was like, "Go ahead, LOL, I don't give a shit." And so anyway, so we're talking about state of mind stuff. Roger Stone clearly seems to think he's guilty of something in illegal jeopardy, right? And we also got more confirmation that Trump wanted to go to the Capitol. This is from Kayleigh McEnany.
Here's Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, describing an exchange she had with the president as soon as he arrived back at the White House.
So to the best of my recollection, I recall him being, saying that he wanted to physically walk and be a part of the march, and then saying that he would ride the beast if he needed to, ride in the presidential limo.
Yeah. I don't imagine Trump was going to do much walking. And also, like, we've been arguing since January 6th, the politicians have, about whether Trump wanted to go to the Capitol on January 6th. It's not, some days he said yes, some days he says no. He's a fucking liar. But apparently Nancy Pelosi heard that on the day. And here's her talking about it in a way that is kind of fucking hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Secret Service said they have dissuaded him from coming to Capitol Hill. They told him they don't have the resources to protect him here. So at the moment he is not coming, but that could change.
Oh, he comes, I'm going to punch him out. This is my
wow,
moment.
I would pay to see
I've
that.
been waiting for this, for trespassing on the Capitol grounds. I'm going to punch him out and I'm going to go to jail.
It's funny funny to me that Pelosi says, she's like, finally, I have trespassing. I have legal justification to knock the president of the United States on his ass.
Yeah.
Who do you think would actually win a fist fight between Trump and Pelosi?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just going to ask you the same thing. I don't know. It's a hard to pick them, I think. I mean, Trump's, sort of a big dude, but also just an old blob of shit who doesn't believe in exercise or anything like that, and a massive pussy and crybaby. So I think if he walked up and she did just hit him across the face, I don't think she'd take him down or nothing, but I don't think he'd do shit about it. Except try to have her killed, probably. Like he would order some guy beside him to shoot her to death, probably. But I don't think he would do anything about it physically. So I guess that means she would win. But I don't think she could take him out either. So.
What he did with Stormy Daniels was he sent some of Fat Tony Salerno, the mafia dude's goons, to visit her, right, and say it'd be basically like a shame if something happened to your daughter. So yeah he'd probably send somebody. But with Roger Stone threatening to get in a gang fight with Jared Kushner's boys, Pelosi trying to hit Trump always talking tough, like he could beat people up. And then the last thing I want to talk about is at least this guy's a general. He might be old and a boomer like these people, but at least he's trained in violence in some way. But the last quote is, if I ever saw anything like that, I would do something physical. So we talked about Trump passing problems on to the next president. In an interview with the House Committee, General Keith Kellogg recounted that he was so horrified upon learning that Trump signed an order on November 11th, which, a week after the election, to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan and Somalia before Biden would be inaugurated. That he would have, quote, done something physical to stop it. The testimony was meant to show that Trump knew he lost and was lashing out, attempting to leave Biden and America in a big mess. Honestly, I wish he had gotten out of Afghanistan.
Right.
I'm not sure how it would have looked executing that quickly and sloppily in December. But whatever, we'll save Biden a political headache.
Yeah, right. Because then when Biden ended up doing it later, then Trump tried to act like that was something he never would have done. So if he had actually just done it beforehand, they all would have found a way to be cool with it. They would have thought it was funny for fucking Biden over. So can't win.
One last take I want to talk about. There's this piece that I read today titled "Ending the January 6 hearings with the Trump subpoena was a mistake." And the person's basically making the case that this is the giant movement that's going to continue, this rising fascist movement in America that's going to continue even after Trump goes. It might be decimated because Trump's the cult of personality is holding the whole thing together, but these people are still going to exist. And they're saying that making it all about Trump is sort of not as totally helpful, especially the whole series of hearings climaxing with a subpoena that's never going to go anywhere.
Right.
So,
I mean, that's definitely anticlimactic and, not what I would have preferred.
They might make
I don't know. I knew. I mean, personally, I always knew that it was going to end in an anticlimactic fashion. That's been my expectation since the very beginning, frankly. So I'm not surprised.
It didn't have to, though. They made some choices. The big delay between the hearings, maybe having them too early during the summer. They could have. They made pretty entertaining television, but they also they're putting together a written report that might have criminal referrals in it. But that's not going to come out till after the election. They're not moving fast enough on reforming the voting county, the Electoral Reform Act or whatever. We talked about this before, but the rhetoric is democracy is under threat, but their behavior is not urgent enough.
Right. Yeah.
Steve Bannon's going to be sentenced on Monday for defying his January 6th committee subpoena. And they let it play out in court when you have they have Capitol Police, they have marshals. You can literally go compel people to testify. That's legal. It's been done before in American history. They just thought it was politically overboard. And I'm like, no, dragging a former White House advisor in to testify in front of Congress in cuffs is the dramatic visual you need to signal people how deep a shit we're in.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, but it's typical Democrat stuff. They were like, we'll let the vote, we'll report and let the voters decide.
Yeah, right.
It's you want us to bail you out, man? Do your job.
Yeah. No, I know. I completely agree with all that. But again, I do think it's very typical of them and is what I expected to begin with. So, yay.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here for another bonus edition of Weekly Skews. We'll see you next time and on the Tuesday shows. See you. Love you. Bye.